What's up, snappers? Welcome back to the channel. DDDREWSKY here. Today we're gonna be looking at the brand new card ARES to see if he's worth your precious resources. We're gonna be looking at his key synergies, counters, and some decks that I brewed for him. But wait, before we do that, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. I do weekly reviews of the brand new card in Marvel Snap, so if you don't want to miss out, hit that notification bell right now. Now let's get back into it. All right, now the question is, who is ARES? Let's take a look. So ARES in Marvel Snap is a 4-cost, 6-powered card with the on-reveal ability to compare the power of the top 3 cards of both decks if your total is higher plus 6 power. So effectively, he's a 4-12 potentially if you get his ability to go off. So imagine if you're playing the game of War. If you haven't played War, you're basically throwing down power to see who has the biggest power. But in the case of Marvel Snap, you're just comparing the deck size, the power of your opponent's deck size, and if you win, you know, ARES gets that plus 6 power, which is massive. I think he has a lot of potential, especially if you want a lot of big power, especially being a 4-cost is pretty insane. If you'd like a big power, then definitely ARES is your choice. All right, now let's take a look at the pros and cons of ARES. Let's take a look. So the first point I want to talk about is that he has a great floor of power. 6 power is great for a 4-cost card. Usually that's on pace for being pretty good. And again, if you don't win the deck size comparison, I think 6 power is great for 4 cost. So he's a relatively easy ability to achieve, right? You're just comparing the deck size. It's not really too hard depending on how you build your deck. That's really the only challenge, really. And again, it really depends on who you're playing against, but it's a pretty easy ability to achieve. So if you like that type of gameplay, just like War, you're definitely going to be interested in ARES. It's very fitting for his lore as well. So yeah, if you like comparing, you know, power with your opponents, then ARES is definitely a great choice for you. So 12 power for 4 cost is insane. If you can achieve his ability, the only real challenges are, you know, depending on what your opponent is playing and how you build your deck. So overall, I would say 12 power is a massive value for achieving this ability. Now let's talk about the cons. Shang-Chi, of course, loves big powered cards. So remember that Shang-Chi is relevant. I know a lot of people haven't been seeing him lately, but you know, especially if ARES becomes meta, Shang-Chi is gonna be freaking everywhere. So another con about him is that it's very dependent on deck order. It really depends on your opponent and even yourself. You want to make sure you build correctly, having high-powered cards in your deck, and you're just praying and hoping that your opponent doesn't have big powered cards in their deck as well. So another big con about him is that ARES is a bit RNG. So it really depends on, you know, how you build your deck. If you can see your deck, I don't know, a lot of people don't really play Howard the Duck, but maybe he's viable with ARES just to check to see what's your next card at least. But there are a lot of cases where you can't really see what's in your deck. So it's a bit of RNG, right? And it really depends on what your opponent has as well, right? You can't really tell what's in their deck. Maybe if you use cables, then you can get some intel like that. But other than that, I think most of the time it's going to be very RNG. Another con about him is that it's only reliable against small power decks. Imagine you're facing against like a Hela deck or a Tribunal list, for example. Yeah, some decks that are very heavy on power, you definitely have to be careful about what you're facing. But yeah, if you're facing against a mirror matchup, I don't think ARES is really going to do much. All right, now let's take a look at the synergies and counters for ARES. Let's take a look. So the first synergy that I want to talk about is armor. Of course, ARES can potentially get to 12 power, so you definitely want to protect ARES with armor or any of the big cards that you have in your list. More than likely, you will have big powered cards, so armor is a great synergy right there. Another synergy that I want to talk about is Baron Zemo. He is a representation of milling someone, especially if you can mill as much as you can from your opponents, then more than likely you'll have a chance of having higher powered cards compared to your opponent, right? He's just an example of milling your opponent. Scar has great synergy with ARES, especially when ARES gets that 12 power that will discount Scar. And again, depending on the deck that you build, more than likely Scar will have tons of value because you're gonna have a lot of high powered cards, right? So now let's talk about the counters. Cosmo, of course, ARES is a on reveal, so Cosmo can counter ARES. It really depends on the situation of your opponents, but they can counter you with Cosmo. Shang-Chi, of course, is another counter for ARES, 12 powered. If you achieve that,
Then, you know, he is Shang-Chi bait, like I mentioned. Infinite is another counter to Ares, especially if your opponent is running big power card like Infinite, like 20 power or something similar to that. Again, Ares is comparing your opponent's cards. So if they are running high powered cards, again, Ares doesn't really do anything, right? So you definitely have to be careful of big powered cards. All right, now let's take a look at some of the decks that I brewed. I think they're pretty fun and competitive. Let's take a look. So the first deck that I have is called It's Mill Ares Time.
So this is my version of a mill style list with Ares. The goal of this deck is to basically mill as much as possible, discarding, destroying cards from your opponent's deck, and then reaping all the benefits of milling them. And then you could use Ares to compare your deck size, and then more than likely you'll get Ares to go off because your opponent will not have any cards in their deck. Thank you again, Dougpie, for recommending milling. Definitely go check him out. He's an amazing content creator and streamer for Marvel Snap, so definitely go check him out.
So for turn one, the Hood or Yondu are great options to run on curve. Run Hood freely if you have Misery or Lady Deathstrike or even Killmonger in your hand, because you can remove the Hood and get that demon from the Hood. Yondu is great to just start milling your opponent's deck.
So for turn two, you definitely want to aim for using Fenris Wolf over Shadow King. You definitely want to save Shadow King for the later turns to counter your opponent.
Fenris Wolf is great with Gladiator or Lady Deathstrike or even Shang-Chi. It really depends on what you destroy from your opponent. Then you can bring it back with Fenris Wolf. Killmonger is just to remove cards like the Hood or Yondu, and it generates a lower cost for death. Or depending on what you pull from Baron Zemo, Killmonger can remove or destroy a card that's a 1-cost card potentially from Baron Zemo.
Baron Zemo and Gladiator are great on curve options for this deck as well. They are
a milling, option. You can mill your opponent with Baron Zemo, grab that card from your opponent's deck, and then Gladiator does the same exact thing, destroys that card from the deck, and again brings value to Ares. Shang-Chi, definitely save him for the later turns. You definitely want to run him maybe like turn 5 or 6. Ares is a great turn 4 option. It really depends on how much you have milled your opponent, destroying cards from their deck, grabbing cards from their deck as well. He has the potential of getting that 6 power consistently with this list. Misery is another option on turn 4. You can use her on the Hood or Yondu or even Gladiator or Killmonger or even Zemo lanes. She definitely causes a lot of chaos with this deck, and running her to just re-enable again more milling and destroying cards from your opponent's deck, definitely very useful in this list. Lady Deathstrike is a sleeper 8-cube winner. I've seen a lot of cases where she destroys a lot of the cards in the meta. She is great right now in this current meta, destroying cards like Victoria Hand or all those like low powered cards. She is a sleeper pick here. And then Death, of course, gets all the benefit of this deck, destroying cards with Killmonger, Gladiator, Shang-Chi, or even Misery, Yondu, for example. All these cards do a lot of destroy for Death, so Death more than likely will be very cheap. All right, now let's take a look at my second list.
So this list is called
Dumb Big Ares Power. So this is my version of the Searcher deck. Definitely want to throw down as much power as possible and then reap all the benefits of throwing all that big dumb power. So for turn 1, the Hood is fine to be played on curve. It really depends if you have a Tuma in your hand. You could use a Tuma to remove the Hood and then get that demon from the Hood. Nico is pretty much just to generate more power for this list. Her +2 spell is amazing, so definitely aim for that spell with Nico Minaru. Zabu is to discount cards like Ares, Atuma, Crossbone, or even Coal Obsidian. A lot of value for Zabu if you can run Zabu on curve. Shadow King, of course, save from the later turns to counter your opponent. Armor and Cosmo is to protect your big cards. So you definitely want to have either Armor or Cosmo to protect them. Surtur on curve for turn 3 is totally fine as well. Definitely want to set up that lane with Surtur, but remember to protect Surtur with cards like Armor and Cosmo. Ares gets tons of value with this list, especially with all the big power cards that you have in this deck. More than likely you'd be okay. Atuma is amazing in this list to be played with the Hood to remove the Hood, or you could play Atuma in the armor lane and it won't destroy any cards. Crossbone is just has tons of value with that 10 power, and you can just play him in a lane that you're winning and you should be fine. Full Obsidian you could be playing on any of those 1-cost cards. More than likely it'd be like Nico or Zabu. Really depends if you have the demon, for example. You can play, Call Obsidian on there. So Scar gets a lot of value with this list, especially being paired up with Ares. That 12 power is insane. And then it reaps all the benefits of all those 10 powered cards.
All right, now let's take a look at my third and final list.
This list is called Ares to Me. So this is my version of Hela. The objective of this list is to discard as much as possible and then bring them all back with Hela. For turn 1, of course, you can use Blade. Blade is really situational. You definitely don't want to discard certain cards. You definitely want to discard the big powered cards. Want to avoid to discard a discarder cards, but I will explain later. So for turn 3, Lady Sif or Swordmaster are great options just to start discarding your cards. So for turn 4, Jubilee or Ares is fine on curve. Jubilee is great just to cheat out these big powered cards out early. Ares just gets tons of value depending on the situation, but more than likely you'll get Ares to go off at 12 power because there's so much big power in this deck. Black Cat, you probably don't want to play. You definitely want to just bring her back with Hela. But again, she brings value to Ares because she's 10 power. Iron Man is a flex option here, but to win the lane, more than likely, Iron Man will be great in any lane that it gets brought back to. So Blink is a very cool option here. You could use her to bring back maybe a big power card instead of a Blade or Lady Sif or Swordmaster that you used in the past. You can bring back a bigger card to replace her position. So for turn 6, Hela is a great option just to bring back all the cards that you've discarded. Magneto is a great disruptor if you have not been able to discard cards. Magneto is a great disruptor for 3 cost and 4 cost cards. Infinite is just really here for power, so more than likely you won't be playing him in this list, but he's a great option once you bring him back potentially with like Hela or with Blink. And then for Death, Death is just big power. You can bring her back with any of these cards. She's definitely great value here.
All right, now let's take a look at the spotlights that are featured with Ares. Let's take a look. So Ares is paired up with Miss Marvel and Misery.
Ares is a Series 5 card, Miss Marvel is a Series 5 card, and Misery is a Series 5 card. So for Miss Marvel and Misery, I would say, unfortunately, to pass on these 2 cards. Miss Marvel has not been really meta relevant. I think she could get a buff in the future, we'll see, but I think she's definitely a passable card right now. Misery, even though I did mention her as a synergy for Ares, I think she has potential, but she's very niche in her current homes. So I would say she's definitely not a must-have, but she's not bad to own, honestly. So if you accidentally get her, she's actually not bad, but I would say she's definitely passable. For the Spotlight variants, I love the Ares Spotlight variant. It looks very menacing. I love the fire, all the smoke that's around him. Miss Marvel, I love her shattering the glass. It looks awesome, so I would say definitely go get her if you want her. Misery, I would say I'm not really huge on the art style. I think she has definitely better art in the game, so I would say definitely is worth a pass. So remember to use 4 keys when opening within a week. You definitely don't want to miss out on a card that you want to aim for, so be careful with your keys and your resources.
All right, now let's take a look at my star ratings for Ares. Let's take a look. So for competitive, I gave him a 4 stars. I think his power is insane for a 4 cost card. I think a lot of the decks that he's featured in will be a lot of power. So if you like power slam decks, I think they're going to be pretty competitive.
For fun, I gave him a 3 stars. I think power slam could be fun for certain people, but for me, I'm not really huge on it. But I would say for the general population, or if you're a casual snapper, I think he can be very fun for you. For flexibility, 3 stars. You saw a lot of the decks that I brewed. They're pretty unique and different. So I definitely can see him fitting in certain archetypes, but we'll see. Eventually he will find a home. For future changes, 2.5 stars. I would say it really depends on if he's very, very strong, depending on what the deck is with him. But yeah, the 12 power for 4 costs is very, very good. I don't think we've ever seen that type of output. Usually like 410 is on curve to be really good, but 12 power is just insane for 4 cost. All right, now let's take a look at my final review of Ares.
Is he worth a snapper skip?
Let's take a look.
So I say snap on Ares. I think he has potential to cause chaos in the meta. I think he'll definitely bring back Scar and other big power slam decks, just like the decks that I brewed, and I hope you love them too.
I think his potential is good. He can fit in different style of lists as well. So I think he's worth the getting. But again, if you are low on resources, I don't think he is worth getting. But I would say overall, he definitely has potential of being a good card. So let me know your thoughts on ARES. Am I wrong? Let me know some of the decks or some of the synergies that you have thought about that I didn't bring up, but let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't yet, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build out this amazing community here on YouTube, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. And I'll see you guys in the next Snapper Skip. Happy snapping.